Gen Zs are people born between the age of 97. Other research may say 94 to 95. But the sure one with McCrindle. McCrindle is a guy who does research. So 97 to 2012.
97 to 2012.
They are among the first generation that were born in technology. They have no idea of what living without technology is all about.
Okay.
They're born in the era of smartphone. I think one of the biggest markers for Gen Z and also other emerging generation is the technological advancement. Also, it's what we call the questioning generation. They question a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The questioning generation.
Questioning generation.
Let's talk about Gen Z and social media. You have mentioned something. You've said they have grown up in this digital areas, and their identities might just be shaped with this digital age. And when you look at online platforms, they're everywhere. You see these Gen Zs, a lot of them are even on TikTok. And sometimes there's a time I saw TikTok was almost being banned because young people are really there and they're doing wrong thing. What would you say about Gen Zs and social media? And now that is the era they're in right now.
Yes. So I think social media is their life. But like they've been born into that particular space.
Yes.
And the balance. Of course, there's the very positive, things of social media, including some of these things that you're doing here. But also there's also the other side of social media that is very negative. So it's always a dance on how to balance in between. But I think one of the major things that we need to do is advocacy on positivity, on how to use the social media positively. So
Welcome to Unfold, where we see with a different eye and of course visualize with a colorful mind. My name is Hilda Lumati and I believe in sharing knowledge. I have authored an amazing book. The book is dubbed Married a Virgin. Now today we are going to have a very interesting conversation. Today we're going to talk about Gen Zs. Likely we've had more of Gen Zs here, Gen Zs there, Gen Zs this. But today we have Gibson here who is going to help us understand this generation. I've met parents who say, I'm struggling to raise a Gen Z, but do we really understand them? Or is it true that they have been shaped by the digital age? Let's find out.
Hey, my name is Gibson Gome. I serve as the National and Youth Lead for Alpha Kenya, basically engaging young people and creating spaces that young people can come and have conversations about faith. And at the same time, also we run a church with my wife, Grace Mosemi, and we have two amazing kids. Our first ministry that is Nia and Jiwe. We are grateful to be in this particular space, not only as parents, serving the young people. We are passionate about that. At the same time, also having conversations that enlighten us on how to engage with young people effectively. This is me at unfoldwithspe, and we're looking forward to an amazing conversation. Yes.
Welcome to Unfold.
Thank you.
This is where we look at life from a different angle.
Yes.
And it's such an honor to have you today.
Thank you.
Because I know you're going to unpack a lot when it comes to Gen Zs.
Hopefully.
Gen Zs kwanza in full ni?
Generation Z.
Iyo Z ni?
It's just part of the alphabet. Aina like the ending. So it's Gen Z, and then now we have Alpha, Beta.
Oh, because somewhere I read, ilikuwa inasema Gen Z stands for Zoomers. So I was like, what is Zoomers?
Zoomers, I think there's those so many names that have been given because of there's a space where they're being called Zillennials. So the Zoomers just from the word boomers. It's only that the comparison, depending on what you want to tackle, because they say after every fourth generation, there's a repeat of another. It's more or less like the same thing, but in a different context. So I love what people sometimes, I think it's more or less also scriptural, that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So it's a repeat, but it's only that it's in a different space, and there are some other characters that are being elongated more than others. So that when you dig a little bit, you like historians say that after every other fourth generation, there is a new one that comes up,
Yeah.
but it's more or less like similar to just now after Gen Z. Now there's something we are calling the alpha, and then we have beta, love. So it's just finding names which you can use for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before we even get deeper into this conversation, we
Yes.
need to start by understanding who a Gen Z is. So who is a Gen Z?
Yeah, I think also understanding the space that they're in is important. But first things first, Gen Zs are people born between the age of 97. Other research may say 94 to 95. But the sure one with McCrindle. McCrindle is a guy who does research. So 97 to 2012.
97 to 2012.
2012, yeah. But when you look at other manuscripts, they can start from 94, 95, at some point also to 2010. If the years go a little bit behind, but it's just within that particular space. So mostly, to be safe, we say between 95 and 97 to 2010 and 2012.
Okay.
So there's somebody who's particular there. There's a guy I texted the other day. I wanted them to come and do an event we are doing called the Gen Z Revolution. And I was very particular with the people that I was speaking. So I was like, so who are you a Gen Z? So I was like, I'm there in the middle.
Kuna venye mtu hajuangi mimi ni Gen Z ama. Yeah.
So I think he also one of the guys who he was like what did he say? Is like a zillennial. So a zillennial is a combination of Gen Z and a millennial.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically that's the period that they're in. They are among the first generation that were born in technology. They have no idea of what living without technology is all about.
Okay.
They're born in the era of smartphone. I think one of the biggest markers for Gen Z and also other emerging generation is the technological advancement.
Yeah.
They're in a digital space, When you speak to them concerning analog TV, like we used to wait and watch wrestling. I saw a meme the other day, was it yesterday? Like you don't know the pain and the patience of waiting for a program that only comes once a month or once a week. You remember when you were growing up, some of us, are you a Gen Z or a millennial?
I know I'm a millennial. Yes.
So we used to, I think there are programs that only used to come once a week.
Yes.
Ikikupita, imekupita. Yeah, so I saw somebody saying, you don't know the pain of that after you've waited for a program. And for the guys who watch soap operas on Saturdays and Sundays, Akina Maria de Los Angeles, Camila, ilikuwa inaitwa Todosobra Camila and all that. So you'll wait a whole week for that program and then utumwe na mother. By the time you're coming back, the program is over.
Yeah.
So we're like, another adios and ingine. So it's basically that's a millennial and part of the other generations. But Gen Z, they're in that particular space, they don't know anything. If they want to, they catch up with their programs online. They have Netflix, they have Showmax, they have, they can stream movies. They can easily get what they want at this particular era. So that's one of the biggest markers of what it means to be part of this generation.
All right.
And they don't recall anything that happens, some of the things that happens in the past, and some of not even in the past because they were not even part of that particular past, but a huge maker for them is fast internet, technology, creativity, things on the go, Uber, some of these apps that are coming up when they instantly want to do things. So that's one of the biggest marker. But basically in terms of the period is between that particular period. Yeah, and also it's what we call the questioning generation. They question a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The questioning generation.
Questioning generation. Actually, we did a report recently. It's called the open generation. They are very frank and open. Yeah, so they ask anything, they'll question anything.
Yeah.
And they pick it up, of course, from when they are kids. Some of the things that we used to do when we were kids, at some point, when we were in the for the other generations, they were kind of suppressed. There's a particular age for young people, and more so kids, between the age of like from 2 to around, actually 3 to around 6 there. They question a lot of things because they want to learn and want to know.
Yeah.
Gen Z pick that up until they are 19, 20. They bring that trait into the other parts of their spaces and all that. For some of the guys who are growing up for the other generations, they kind of suppressed it because they kind of grew up and realized, in this world, some answers you have to find for yourself.
Yes.
But for these guys, they are relentless. They continue with that particular trait, and they want to know exactly what are some of the things we are being told we are supposed to do or not to do, and why. Yeah. So it's basically an open generation. Yeah.
I think life lately, there's a time we have really seen Gen Zs come out, and it was during Mandamano, and we were like shocked.
Yes.
Like, these young people, they know what they want.
Yeah.
And they know how best they want it done. So how can you say, when it comes to understanding Gen Zs, you know, I feel like sometimes we struggle understanding Generation Z, and they feel like we don't also understand them. So how best can we understand this generation?
Well, nice question. I think the first thing is information is power. I think also one of the, before we get to that, also one of the markers of Gen Zs, of course, with the technological advancement, is that they have lots of information.
Yes.
You know, one of the reasons that for the other generations, they were kind of, quote unquote, suppressed in a way is because, you know, void of information, it means you are subject to the one that has the information.
Yes.
And we are fascinated, for some of us, we were fascinated when people are called professor, you know, PhD. When somebody introduces himself, we'll first wait until he mentions a title so that we are like, oh, now we can listen, because it meant that they have that particular information. But right now, with the advancements of technology, these young people without the titles, they have the information.
Yes.
So they're just waiting for you to confirm some of that particular information. So with that is also understanding that we are not giving them something new. It's information that basically they have.
Yes.
So it's getting into a space where we need to interpret that information for them, because the information they have can be positive or negative at that particular space. So in one of the recent things that we've been having, and I think what you have just basically mentioned is that they were there. It's only that we've never seen them come out in that particular, you know, space and come out strongly in the sense of mobilizing themselves in the different spaces that they were. One of the major things that made them mobilize as they mobilized was technology again. Because they did a lot of, you know, online mobilization before they get into that particular space. So understanding that, and I think this is also general, I'll also mention it in the parents, but it's generally, the thing that we miss is understanding that these guys are not growing in the times that we grew up in. Or the times are very different. The circumstances might be the same, but the seasons are very different for them. They are vast of information. So first is, how best can we understand them is understanding the information that they have.
Yes.
And the best way to understand that information is not by researching, it's only by asking them. Let me hear you out.
True.
So the posture must also change, because when we were being fascinated with professors, it meant that we are at their masses, quote unquote, that we have to listen to them. Whoever has power, whoever has the information has the power, and it means that we have to lean in and listen into that particular space. But now with the information that they have, because also they have some information that also we can get in school through the sum of the things. I mean, currently a class for Forex exchange and trade, and it's a young person that is teaching us, and the guy is like smart. The guy is a genius.
Yeah.
There are some things, of course, we finish, you know, after the class, and you're like, what has that guy said, you know? Because some of the information that these guys have, and the guy is, I think, 21 to around 23.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, this guy is full of information. You have to get almost more than 2 classes just to understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
But you also get to think, where did he get all this information from? But for him, it was more easier because he had access to all those other things when he was growing up. He got to understand the different, you know, ways to work with the markets and do the exchange and all that. So is for us to understand what he has, we have to sit in and listen. So it's more or less of a shifting our posture into a space where we are listening so that we can understand, not listen to answer, but listen to understand what information they have so that we can know how to serve them better. Yeah, so I think basically that's the major aspect that we can, or rather the posture that we need to have for us to fully understand them.
Yeah.
But also understanding also the space that they're in, understanding the some of the things that is affecting them, part of the challenges and all that.
Yes.
Because one thing that also is important is experience. You can't beat experience. Your experience, your personal experience is a personal testimony that you can share with the generation itself and all that. So it's just making sure that you know how to balance in between. But a bigger aspect is if we want to understand them, we have to listen to them. Yeah.
You see, I go out there to speak to young people.
Yeah.
And most of the time I encounter Gen Zs. And I want us to talk about Gen Zs with, from different aspects of life.
Yes.
And let's begin with the church, because I go to speak to young people even in churches. And if there's one thing I noticed is, I don't think, okay, you can correct me, I see young people not being into church that much. It's like they take it so casually, you know? Unaenda unapata hata watu wa youth wako kidogo, and you're like, where are these young people?
Yeah.
Maybe you can just talk about Gen Zs and the church.
Yes.
What do you feel about that?
Basically, they kind of put it out there in terms of not me feeling, but by the time they were saying tutaenda kusalimia church,
Yeah.
but just laying a foundation is the reason as to why, because we only hurt with what you love. So church is one of the greatest institutions. It has done amazing, wonderful work. It continues to do that and becomes a voice for the voiceless. And I think one of the reasons as to why Gen Z felt so much, you know, the particular, whatever they felt at that particular period, there are so many other institutions that failed them, but they single-handedly picked the church, apart from the government.
Yes.
Of course, the government was the main focus, but the next space that they picked was the church. One, because they have put so much confidence in the church, and over time, there's a perceived irrelevance, like it's not meeting their current needs. And if you like, once we followed all that, we realized that a number of young people, and even just over time, people that were in that particular space, you know, they felt that there's a perceived irrelevance that the church is not catching up with.
Yeah.
And a big example is what happened in 2020 during the transition for COVID. While the world was far much ahead, and I think also for this part, and basically in all other spaces and in different parts of the continent, where the world was ahead in technology, they were doing live streams, they were doing all this. The church was slowly to adapt into that particular space, and the young people have felt that irrelevance or the slowness to adapt to them understanding what they really need for them to grow into that particular space. So there's a kind of course, there's the stages of young people growing up. So there's the part where, you know, they're not fully committed. There's the part that they feel that we need our inheritance. And also there's the part that, of course, they can come back into that particular space again and know how best they can serve the generations to come. But I think there's a way the church can do better to uphold the young people, so that you don't have to always have a young people that is leaving and then coming back when they are at 40s.
Yeah.
Because that's also a bigger problem that is happening in churches. The transition is hard. You have amazing, wonderful kids.
Yeah.
You have thousands and thousands of teenagers, but there are no young people. And then now there's a reverse. Half of them might be missed in that particular space, but also, you know, the guys who are grounded when they were young, they'll just find their own spaces on way to come back.
Yeah.
But there's a gap. You know, the
Yeah,
transition
there's a gap.
itself, there's a serious gap. We don't have to lose any in that particular space, but it is in that space that young people that felt that you're not speaking into the things that are speaking into us, in the sense of, like, right now, mental health. I've seen sadly people ignorantly dismissing things like mental health from the pulpit.
Yes.
Which is not so good. You know, you can have all those other things. As much as we're speaking so much about mental health, they are living it. They have the reality of it. So again, creating and opening up spaces of accommodating them even during this particular period that they are transitioning. And then, of course, there's a huge, like, that's why I said, like, there's no need for what I'm feeling is more or less like out there. There's a huge distrust in the institution. And it went back also not to the church, in the sense of there's no way that you two guys can be compared with. You can be like the government.
Yeah.
At least you can be our voice, but you've failed to be our voice.
Yeah.
We have one of my friends. I saw her on was it during that particular period? She was out there on the streets, and she was like, because the church fathers have refused to come out, and it was not. I think I had a conversation with her. It was not like we are fighting against and all that. It was genuinely, we expected you to speak. I don't know if ushapigwa fiti, alafu mzee wako akakam, your dad akakuja akakuangalia akakwambia mbona ulikuwa unapigana? You're like, dude, you're supposed to protect me.
Yes.
Ama unafaa kuchapa huyu jamaa, but sasa mimi ndio make subject to your conversation.
Yes.
So I think the distrust kind of also came from there, in the sense of, so many other things that have been happening for our country. It's just a depiction of also what is happening also in the globe and the continent, in the sense of there's that kind of distrust, and it doesn't start from mali walikuwa wakifanya maandamano. Is when you are youth leaders, you put your money in the church account, alafu unarudi unaambiwa hiyo church, hiyo money ni kama ilienda.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do a project, but sijui kama mtaenda hiyo trip tena.
Yes.
And then you come up with, all these other amazing activities and all that, and then without even your request, without even your involvement, we've made this thing, so you guys find something else to do.
Yeah.
But you've been planning, you went for a retreat, you planned your whole calendar, the things that you're supposed to do, you're planned a way of which you can raise your own funds, but you're being dismissed as if you guys, you don't know what you're doing, and we'll take care of the rest of the other things. This is the direction. And that has built up even from guys even moving away from church, moving into spaces where at least, the problem is not what you're doing, it's how you do it. It's like, okay, we've seen that the church cannot accommodate this calendar for this year, but we love you guys to narrow down into 1, 2. There is a mutual trust that is built over there.
Sure.
So, but the distress comes from there. And then, of course, now we see it in the streets. And now, in fact, just recently, the money that was given to the Catholic Church, nasikia pia jamaa alitembelewa or something. So nasikia wanaitaje kusalimiana or something. So wamerudi wamesema. So and that is like their way of saying we want to regain
trust into an institution that we know that it has done a lot for humanity and all that. But the beauty about this is church is being run by men who are not perfect. And there's a space, of course, just to move and just have mutual agreements. And just the other day also, I saw a whole youth ministry from one of the churches in a different country. They resigned because they say we've been raising issues concerning our involvement. And the biggest thing they were saying, you guys are not listening to us. So that's what is kind of happening. And also just through interactions with youth leaders, youth workers, there's a sense of frustration that, we've been planning, we've been doing this, but we are not feeling heard. And that's the thing. And I think that's what was the major thing of why Gen Zs went to the streets. We are like, we've read this thing, we've shared our views, you're not even addressing us. And we just need you to come. And during that period, I posted something on my status. I was like, I should be one of the advisors to the president. These guys were not looking for any major changes. They just wanted somebody to come and say, hey guys, we've had, and we love to walk this journey with you. It would have calmed every other thing down at that particular space, yeah.
Let's talk about Gen Z and social media. You have mentioned something. You've said they have grown up in this digital areas, and their identities might just be shaped with this digital age. And when you look at online platforms, they're everywhere. You see these Gen Zs, a lot of them are even on TikTok. And sometimes there's a time I saw TikTok was almost being banned because young people are really there and they're doing wrong thing. What would you say about Gen Zs and social media? And now that is the era they're in right now.
Yes. So I think social media is their life. But like they've been born into that particular space.
Yes.
And the balance. Of course, there's the very positive, things of social media, including some of these things that you're doing here. But also there's also the other side of social media that is very negative. So it's always a dance on how to balance in between. So one of the things about the social media, they own it, they love it, they use it. And the thing about social media is that it keeps moving in terms of the platforms and the things that they're using. And I think somebody was telling me that they move depending on how popular the social media platform becomes. If their parents join Facebook, they move away from Facebook. They go to Insta. If their parents join,
they move away from
they
Instagram.
move. So if you look at that movement, they are moving into they are looking for a safe space where, and part of it is they don't want the stigma of, why did you post what you posted? Why did you, because I have my parent at home to tell me that, but in my space, I just want to have my own personal space where I can also connect. Actually, was it Snapchat? It grew because of, the friends that were meeting in that particular space. They were moving into that space because we can meet here without the supervision of different guys and all that. So, but I think one of the major things that we need to do is advocacy on positivity, on how to use the social media positively. So if anything, and that's the it cuts across a whole spectrum from education. If churches right now should be having courses on how to engage positively with social media. It should be introduced into your education system in one way or the other. I love that there are some digital literacy, but the same way we were learning computer, nakumbuka tukisoma computer tulikuwa tunaenda tukicheza tu Mortal Kombat. I don't know if you remember, tukana hizo computers are white. These guys are different. They're coding. They're thinking of ways which, so is how they can leverage that, because the biggest space that we have in their lives is creating a space where they can trust us and lean on us for us to instill values, because one thing that tradition has is the values. And those values should be passed on. Like when some says, that we may pass on the word of God to a generation and to another generation. So we can't prevent and keep them away from that particular space, but we can teach them on how to use that space positively. So it's how do we do that, but making sure that we have their ear first for us to know, by the time, even other than hawking over them, is more or less like telling them, by the way, you create a space where they can come and lean on you for you to instill the space that you really need. So social media is becoming rampant. It's growing very fast. TikTok, videos, even right now also is, I think we did, again, partner organization also did research, and they say they spend 7 hours, 40 minutes online. That's an 8 to 5 job. And the biggest thing that they're consuming is videos. So again, how can we infiltrate that particular space? We are not supposed to shy away, because we have now people who, like the traditional guys from the different generations, they have their values. They can come into these spaces. I was sharing with one of the clergy, and I was telling them one way also to connect with these guys is just, even if you have figured a way out, but involve them in building content for you. Allow them to feel that they are directing you, they are producing you, they are marketing you. So whatever, as they do that, when, like, if we have a young person seated there, is consuming what we are saying. When he's editing, he's consuming what you are saying. So by the time he's thinking of content, he was like, he has an idea of what kind of content and direction that I'd love to go. So it's more or less like creating spaces, even informal spaces of learning for them, to just transfer the values for that, so that they can use in their social media spaces. And basically is more, because what we need right now is just the balance, just knowing how far we can go, but also conversing with them and creating opportunities for them to show that you can live without. Sometimes you just need to plug and meditate and read the word and do something with your life and all that. But at the same time, just acknowledging the fact again that they were born into this particular space. If they are not taught, they won't get exactly what we mean when we say, "Amwoni is the same." I don't know if we had my father-in-law fell in love. And I think like that particular family, let me say some family in love, the parents and some parents to my wife, they were like the hardcore towns until they got smartphones. Even them, they at some point they get closed into that particular space. So it's just knowing. Now imagine if us who are not born into that space, you cannot get lost. So imagine them being born in that particular space. They started watching YouTube by the age of 3.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's how do we unplug them? And I think there's a verse, train up a child in the way that they should go, and they should never depart. So it's something also we are doing with my daughter right now. It's just making sure that that everything does not rotate around the phone and the TV.
Very important. That is powerful. Now let's talk about Gen Zs and relationships and marriages. Yeah, hey, that area, my God. I've met young people who say nowadays there are no men to marry. There are no, the way the men have been brought up, wamebembelezwa sana, boy child, and there are no ladies to marry because there are some things they have not been taught while growing up. And young people are struggling with being in relationships. And I've had statements like marriage is a scam. They don't believe in marriages anymore. And now that they are on social media, they are seeing other people's lives and marriages and relationships. And some are not even working. And they're like, is it even necessary in the first place? Let's talk about that.
The relationships themselves, again. Nasikianga wakisema soko imechafuka.
Yes, exactly. Wanasema soko ni chafu.
So, but again, it goes back to the values again. So I think this period and this dispensation and era, if you don't pray, you feel early. Because prayer builds a faith in you that helps you to mentor and to look after the young people, and more so even this particular generation.
Yeah.
Because we have to instill, because also the enemy is fast bringing something that we call immorality into the world.
Yes.
So from the entertainment space, if they're advertising lotion, lazima uweke, if they're advertising, they even advertise Royco, and it's some very familiar, or rather some very strange things that are happening, but also it's behind, including some of the things that we are watching right now, and even what the kids are watching. We just discovered also there are so many other cartoons that the LGBTQ agenda is being spread in.
Can you imagine? I heard of that.
A lot. And we basically started like vetting some of the things that my kids need to watch or they should watch. And also there's a subscription that we are doing for a Christian platform for kids. So it means like we have just to be very heightened spiritually to understand what are some of the spirits that are being deposited into this relationship marriage space. Anything that is God's idea must be fought with the enemy, because marriage is God's idea, but marriage starts from dating. Actually, family is the basic unit for government, and if there's anything that needs to be taught, should be taught from the family basic. From the onset is what values are we instilling, and more so for the leaders that have been given opportunity to speak into young people, into families, is to make sure that we are creating a holistic system. And that's why also I was saying the irrelevancy, the perceived irrelevance into today's discussions and discussing things that are affecting young people today should come from mostly the platforms that God has given us, and that includes the church. So young people should be taught about family. Young people should be taught about money. Young people should be taught on how to love, men should have, we should not be waiting for men to grow.
Yeah.
Because some of them, it's not their fault. And also it's not the fault of their parents. They may be coming from a single mother. So already there's a lot to unpack there.
Background.
That the background itself. So it's nobody's fault. It's only that's the situation that you are in right now. That's what was driven. So by the time this young man was growing up, alisikia tu madhaka akimwambia wanaume ni wabaya sana. Dona kama baba yako aliniacha nikiwa, and if there are things that we are lacking even right now is the filters, because even the parents might not and even Gen Zs right now, they are parents. because the oldest Gen Z is around between 24 to almost 26.
Yeah.
So if there was no there's no strong, support system while they were growing up, they can only project what they got in their family setups and all that. So I think that's the thing about family, but it's just more or less like building and becoming radical in sharing some of these values. If they are putting some of these things in the social media space, in the entertainment space, also for us, we need to come up with programs, events that are fully, some of the events, they are family-based events that encourage alcoholism, where spaces are being created by people from the other world just to come and advance some of these things. So this is a boy that has seen his father and their mother drinking while they were young. So the best thing that he can give to his generation again is to create another space for that.
Yeah.
So again, it's just what exactly can we do to really build that particular platform where we are speaking and engaging, and we are also like reflecting what it means to be a family at whatever background that people are coming from, but where they congregate, we are advocating for this is what it means, this is how it looks like, and this is how we can help you in whatever space that you're in right now, even if it's growing and creating a father figure into that single mother, bringing a mother figure, even if it is that, single father that is raising a girl or a child. So it's a dynamic and it's just particular balance, but also it means that the relevance, or rather the relevant topic should be mentioned into these particular spaces where we are not only just thinking of women, men, and youth departments, but we are building on, cross-generational departments that you can have mentorship activities that are happening across, because we have people that are privileged who have built families. We also need to learn and lean in and listen from them and create forums where people are going to be equipped on the best ways to grow young people. Because it's very sad. I was part of my passion for young people also, because the biggest population for young people are coming from Eastlands. 7 million population, 5 million in the day, 7 million at night, because of trade and all that. So a bigger percentage, when you just do 70 or 75% of them are young people, it means a bigger percentage from our city, they're coming from Eastlands. So it was sad just seeing a 19-year-old who had, I think, a 3-year-old child, and alikuwa anampatia bangi, akisema this is initiation to our family. So by the time and the child is like 3 years old. So by the time they grow, by the time they are 10, they are 12, they have already been broken already. So it means that when we get opportunities and spaces to really create a better platform for them, is to instill the values as early as they can.
Yeah. And from what I'm getting, times are changing. Times are really changing.
Times are changing.
So we need to embrace generations.